my God, I had such a good time in Uganda. You know, like, it's just so interesting to be Ugandan and to never have lived in Uganda. I don't know, it's a great feeling because I'm like, it's my passport, I'm home. And then I can even start talking slowly, like at Uganda. You know, because we don't talk loudly. We have a particular way of talking.
But
Patricia is from Uganda, although she has another accent from the west where we are from, which is another particular one. But in general, we land in Uganda and they're like, Madam, welcome home.
Welcome.
And it takes you, takes it a level a much lower than usual. Anyway, I'm happy.
You know, I love it. I love it. And you know what? I think we have to reach a point in life where we embrace our accents and where we're from and don't use anybody else's standards to make it okay. But this accent is okay and this isn't. Because you know what? There's a theory that says, and I'd love to hear what you ladies think. There's a theory that says that the accent, that there's accent bias in the world. And that your accent can influence you making it or not making it, you getting access to certain spaces or not getting access to certain spaces. What do you guys think?
It's so interesting. What do you think?
I think that's very interesting. It's not that I've never thought about it, because also where I'm from, I tend to sound a bit different. And even as you spoke, it's in the cadence, it's in the speed, and like even getting home, like even if it's like a quick Uber or like the immigration officer and they're like, "Hi, welcome home. This one is Chirabo." Like, you know, the thing is my name here. My name tends to be unique because people tend to use like their English names, and I have an English name. I've just always pig-headedly used my first and Shirabo.
Yeah.
So here I'll be asked like, "Oh, what does it mean?" But back home, it's like it's a known name, and it's one that's like one that has been given to me. The like a loved one. It means gift. So you'll always meet someone who see it. Like, my daughter's name is Chirabo, my sister, my mother. Like, they always share that they also know another gift.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And then, like, at some point, I think the last time that I was in Uganda, like, they stopped me and she just said, "But madam, you are from Uganda. You are sounding like you're from America, UK, yeah, born and bred." And I feel like what's interesting that you said about the accent is, I think it's a double-edged sword, because maybe sometimes you're like, you can sound a certain way and people would like to be spokesperson for this or lead with this, sure. However, like, it can lead to like otherness, and I would experience it a lot, especially like, let's say through school, where like you can be picked on this or that because you just sound odd or off, and sometimes you're like you can hear yourself speak. I'm like, man, like, you get singled out really easily. Like when you're in town and like, you're like, I already know like the price you're gonna give me is so dumb. Like, I'm from here. I already know this is this much. But I bet to be like, this one, like, I don't know. But the accent thing is so interesting because people pick up on it ASAP and like already thinking something or the other.
Crazy though, because you know what? This begs the question, like, what is the norm? What is that standard by which we're measuring, a different accent versus like this norm? And I think like now with like globalization, westernization, all these constructs, if I take it to maybe like to a professional world, my experience sometimes is, so like I advise startups as most of what I do, and also invest in them through a fund. And what I've noticed is, there are a couple of things. One is people are more, I think the doors are more open when someone's accent is, I'd say, neutralized, aka actually westernized. If I speak about like African, you're coming in with your Kenyan accent, your Nigerian accent, your Tanzanian accent, and so on. If I say, so I've been in the market for about, a year, and I have been able to create this product that basically improves your productivity, and I've done it in 3 markets, and this pitch will show you how it's done. If I say that as an African woman of any country versus I have created this product and I am here to show you the efficiency of it will be much improved. And now that is what my presentation is about to show you.
There's bias.
Absolutely.
And even seeing your reaction,
Instant
basically,
bias.
there is instant bias, and we need to call it out. Where
Yeah.
the former is, call it the neutralized, a tiny bit of British, a tiny bit of American, whatever it is more palatable to the receiver, and the receiver is probably a mixture of people, both African people as well as, let's call them Europeans, Americans, and the like.
Yeah.
That former neutral, westernized accent is just more like, oh yeah, it sounds clear,
like you know what you're talking about, or whatever.
And the latter, which is, I don't know, how did I sound?
African, but it could have been from African from several places. But
so that latter African from several places accent is just a bit like, oh my god,
It's almost like there's a perception or a misconception that because you sound African and because there's a certain perception or stereotype about Africans, you're put in a certain box, almost as you may not, your product or what you're pitching may not be as good.
It's ridiculous.
And it's ridiculous because I think I've met Africans, some of the smartest people, and they may not sound polished and British or American or whatever, but they are so smart and they've done some insane innovations. You only need to just go online and look at the innovations coming out of Africa.
Yeah.
And watching some of the videos of some of these innovations that people have done. The guy who innovated and did a glove that can do sign language?
Yes.
Did you see that, for example?
Yeah.
I mean, these are just regular Africans,
absolutely,
born and bred and educated in Africa, and they've done this thing.
And we just need to normalize that. This is our continent, these are our countries, these are our accents.
It's okay to have an accent.
And I recognize that bias.
That's local. Yeah.
I'll call it out even in myself. It's so unconscious for me, so subconscious that if I'm sitting there, like let's say on this panel, making a decision about like some product or whatever, I'm now so attuned to the bias. And often I'm with, let's say, white Americans, Europeans, and the like, that you know what I mean? I'm ready for the fight. I'm ready.
Absolutely.
When somebody's just about to say, oh, they don't seem like they know what they're talking about. Oh, I don't know if they're like, if I can put them in front of investors. I am the first person who'll be like, well, why? Why don't you know that? Why? Their product works well. They have customers. They have their financials. Tell me why. And I push and push and push
to break open the boundary.
And I suppose it's because I know that I might have that bias. I've overcorrected now.
Yeah.
By saying I am going to stand for everyone.
But you know what? It's not necessarily an overcorrection. And I always say it's not by accident that we find ourselves at the table or at the front of the line, defending something, or at the forefront of being conscious of something. And I always feel like if circumstances have put you in that seat, what are you going to do to make a difference for the 1 million people who would have been discriminated against?
Bingo.
I always say we're not there by accident.
Absolutely.
Are we going to make a difference, or are we going to shrink back and let the bias continue?
Yeah.
You're not there by accident. Why you and not somebody else?
Exactly.
It's because you found your voice and you can speak up in that setting and at that table and defend the person who's got a brilliant idea. They just don't have a neutral accent, American or British or whatever.
Exactly.
What I'm wondering, actually, have you ever found yourself feeling like a bit cringed or embarrassed by how it is you sound? Like in any setting?
Yes. I remember being at a certain activity. It wasn't a team building, but it was a team building for a social thing that I do. And I remember being picked on, and the moderator, actually I've never gone back. The moderator said, they were referring to a certain place that is it's not a slum, but it's a low income area. And they said, you can't know this thing. Have you ever even been there? And they were picking on me because of how I speak. Because nobody else in that setting spoke like I spoke.
Yeah.
I took it so personally. I felt picked on. I'm an introvert already. So first of all, don't draw attention to me in that way. And then when it's negative, where I'm supposed to apologize for who I am, first of all, I thought to myself, they must be a really crap moderator, because you don't do that. I've moderated, I've facilitated events and trainings and all sorts of stuff. And it was so wrong the way they did it.
Yeah.
But what it did, it made me defend myself. And afterwards I thought, instead of defending myself in the way that I did, I should have actually attacked him back. And said, what's your problem? Is it the way I speak?
Yeah.
Why would you assume and why would you pick on me and say it the way you said it and put him back on the spot? But I didn't. I defended myself and then I felt really horrible for the rest of the activity. And then I just never went back.
Oh.
I know. But you see, so we have to be so conscious because you can be picked on because you have that Luo accent or that Kikuyu accent where you are talking in a certain way with the scrubbing and all your
Now you have
arrows
started
and
with your
arrows.
Kikuyu accent.
You know.
What are we going to tell the Kikuyu people listening?
Oh, yours is terrible.
Mine is actually from Kamba. You know, me, my accent is from Kamba land.
Oh, now Kamba's in the house.
Just in Punt and everywhere, and you just speak like this. And this one is my Kamba accent.
I
think it's I think the two things that stand out in my mind was one, especially like being in high school, I'd taken up this class and it was for my literature class, and the teacher had a very pretty Ugandan accent, a very Nyakuda accent.
Yes.
So I just remember like my first class, like I don't think that I had like a bias toward it, but then I remember just like picking up on how it is that he taught. He could like quote Shakespeare back and forth and says these like most like insightful things. Like I think it was one of the first times that I ever started to like note down different things people say, and that was the first time I ever thought like I never want to be in a space where I'm not keeping up and catching up with what you're saying. That was the full thought. Like and I remember him saying something about it. He actually addressed it. He not in particular, but he said it in general. I think he once spoke about this, and he said no matter how you speak, you should always push that boundary, because he said people don't fall in love with faces, they fall in love with stories. Like, how can you walk? He's like, when you walk around, he said, you walk around this earth and no one falls in love with you. You walk in this earth and no one falls in love with you. You can just stories yourself.
I love that. Man. I love that.
Oh no, I like honestly shout out to him. But then I think the second time where I felt an odd experience was feeling awkward about it. And this was not a bad experience on my end. It was for like a research project that I was doing for a company to see how to just do research on like what we wanted to do and talk to people who would be, let's say, target audience users. And I remember this gentleman, we had split into teams. We have different lines of people who are down to participate. And this one gentleman like sat there. He was the last one, and he just sat there looking so awkwardly. I'm like, just turning him over, and he's like, he's just trying to wait in a longer line. I'm like, no. And then I just sat there, and then my colleague looked at me and was like, let me go see what's wrong. And then he said to my Luganda, he was like, I've heard her English, I don't want to annoy her. And at that moment, I just felt so awkward, because I was like, I've never thought about someone feeling like, I don't want to sound like that. And the thing is, it's different ponds that we can be in. Because I'm sure, like, let's say at home, I can sound one way. While here, like, every other person I meet, let's say even is Kenyan, is like, oh, you're from Uganda, I can hear it.
Right.
But then, like, let's say if I went to, like, the UK or something, and I'm like, can I please have a bottle of water? They're like, a what?
Yeah.
Bottle of water? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah. Well, the US.
It's
Yeah.
different.
Like very
It can be
American.
so awkward as well.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting as we think about, you know, like my fake Kamba accent. Sorry, don't mean to disrespect anyone out there, or, you know, your Kikuyu accent. And these are, you know, as many of you might know, ethnic groups in Kenya. You know, if I think about that, and then I think Uganda versus Kenya, it's so interesting, like how we can just split ourselves down to that very granular, like, base, you know, as opposed, which is just annoying, because somebody else on the outside might just be like, oh, you know, those Africans and their accents.
Yeah.
Like, any which way it can be a problem. And so my point is, let's just normalize the idea that we all come with this like variance, we all come with these differences.
Yeah.
Actually, I know like the way I sound right now is probably a function of, you know, yes, having gone to, you know, British school, then going to like US university and speaking English as a second language for lots of my adult life in Francophone and Lusophone communities. And so, you know, sometimes people are like, there's no origin to my accent, or it leans one way or another, but it's truly because of the way I have come of age the influences and the exposure that I've had. And for somebody to tell me to other it and to say it's different, it's better than, it's less than, I just think that's not helpful.
It doesn't sit
Just
well
normalize
for the
it's different from
multilingual
yours,
queens.
different
and
from
it's
yours.
okay to be
No, I
different.
have a question for multilingual queens because you both speak more than one language. Have you ever thought to think about how you sound in that one?
Yes.
Because like I can't lie to you, even like I'll give the example of let's say Nyankore, which is my local language in Uganda. When I hear it, I feel so embarrassed to speak it because mine is terrible.
Yes.
But when I hear it, it sounds like the cadence, like it sounds amazing. I'm like, what's your? Sometimes I'll listen to someone speaking, I'm like, you're gliding right now. You sound great. Like, and then you never think about how, let's say if you're learning another language, how maybe you sound completely off. But in learning something, you have to be willing to be embarrassed about it. And that's why I think like accents is always going to be a very awkward thing in African communities or Black ones, because we're always code switching, speaking all these different ones, and we want to sound great. Like, we want to sound great because you want to have a great local, a great accent in your local language, in English, in French, in speak Spanish, and it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, what I have to say to that is that, first of all, you are gifted if you can speak multiple languages.
That's true.
You know, I meet South Africans who speak 5 of the South African languages. They have, I think, 11 languages, main languages, maybe
9
more.
to 11,
you know, and I think that is talent. It does. Who said it has to be French or Spanish or German or Chinese or Japanese? You know, you speak 5 languages and they're local languages, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so, and even if you speak multiple languages and you don't speak them perfectly, I think that's okay.
I love it.
Because I speak French. Sometimes I speak it well. When I'm tired, the English in it starts to kind of come, because now kind of my tongue is maybe tired. I'm kind of mentally tired. And usually French, native French speakers will say, "Oh, I love the English accent." And I always think to myself, but I'm finding myself sounding so Frenchy. But in the end, I embrace it with all the
with your best French accent. Then telling you love your English accent.
Yeah, because when I'm tired, it happens. Because my brain just it's tired, you know.
Yeah.
And what I always say is that I've mastered that language and I speak it really well, and I can correct mistakes sometimes that a native French speaker is making because I learned the grammar of it.
Okay.
And so let's cut ourselves some slack.
That's true.
You know, when you can speak any other language, whether it's a local language or from another country, that's a big deal. It is, because somebody should be picking on you.
Even just in terms of expression, I think like the times I feel true FOMO is like, especially when, let's say, you're speaking a different language. I can't lie, linguistically, I'm a bit limited. Let's not go into it. But sometimes I'll be listening to someone I can actually tell me we don't speak the same language, and I immediately have FOMO for like, I'm missing all the jokes and your wit and your this that I just can't, I won't know. So even hearing someone with, let's say, a heavy French accent in English, the one thing I'm glad about is like I get to somehow get a glimpse into like how you think and your personality into that. Because even to express it, to land a joke, to ask a question, to like, it's I think if a lot more people are actually just limited to one, they would be a lot happier that you can at least make an exchange.
Absolutely. That's what it's about.
I mean, you know, I speak 7 to 9 languages, depending on nutrition levels, fatigue levels, and the like. And, you know, they're all at different levels. And one of the things is, it is true, as I was learning like French formally and stuff, I was really trying to say, you know, let me get the right accent. And you know what was really interesting? So I had a French teacher from France. It's my first formal teacher here in Kenya, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But what's funny is when you start to use a language, so I worked in Madagascar, and the French accent is quite unique, quite different.
Okay.
And then, you know, in later years, worked in Abidjan, you know, and traversed, you know, Senegal, Niger, Burkina, and the like. And I realized, so I spent all those 5 years in my teens, or whenever it was, early whatevers, tweens, learning French and really trying to sound like Madame Rouric, qui était une Parisienne, donc elle parlait comme ça, avec les gestes un peu, une façon un peu française, un peu parisienne, quoi, you know, so like very like Parisian. And, you know, you start to get into that. Here I am, you know, Pan East Africa, trying to sound like that. And then later I'm in West Africa and I'm like, Mais là-bas, on parle pas comme ça, non? On parle pas français comme ça.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
parle pas comme ça. On a un accent différent qui est de l'Afrique de l'Ouest.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like, you look at me, you think I'm from Senegal, right? Tall, dark, whatever. And then you have, like, the accent pops up and it's from somewhere else. So it just taught me that, you know what, from now on, any other language, and since then I have learned Spanish, Portuguese, improved my Luganda. You know, I said from now on, I'll just learn as I speak. And fine, if there's one person, because a lot of my learning is mirroring. So if there's one person, I'm trying to learn Kinyarwanda because it's like an aunt who speaks in a certain way or whatever.
Yes.
That's fine, but I'm also okay with falling completely short and landing as an accent that is neither here nor there. But like words are coming out.
Yeah.
You know?
What I noticed is that in many countries, the fact that you make an effort to speak their language, even if you're making it breaks the ice, right? You don't have to speak it perfectly. The fact that you made it's like somebody speaking in broken Swahili or broken English.
You're like, you're trying, and that's nice.
You already embrace them for making the effort.
It's showing like I want you to feel seen. It's a big thing.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, this really gets me thinking that, you know, we belittle, we diminish our different accents. We started to talk about different ethnic groups and we went regional, Kenya, Uganda, and we talked about, like, say, in a global work context, how the neutral, which is actually, to be honest, European American. When we say neutral, really that's what it means.
Yeah.
Sounding British, sounding American is getting more points than our own. Like, we have to respect our own. We've got to elevate and kill that bias. And when I'm in, you know, country X, like I learned Swahili because I lived in Dar. Really. Tanzania, you cannot survive without Swahili. And so, if I'm to go to Ghana and really you're seeing me on year 3, 4, where's my tree? What language have I learned? And I would expect that from anyone, even, you know, any race, let's call it white European, white American on the continent. Learn the language. Just, we need
it's not supposed to be gatekept. Don't gatekeep.
You know my point though is like I get so much kudos for French, Spanish, Portuguese. People are like, wow. German, which I learned, which is sort of half still there, you know, and people don't give me a super wow for the effort that I'm making to improve my Kinyarwanda, to get to a level of Luganda where I'm speaking more than just present tense. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
They're not giving me the wow. And these are languages.
But I've met people, like there's an old American friend, we since lost touch, who had lived in Tanzania. And this guy, when he was a gruff old American, we met through business related stuff. Somebody was doing business with him and was a friend, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, this guy, when he opened his mouth and spoke Swahili, it was that Swahili Sanifu, the Swahili from Tanzania, the deep, proper one. I mean, I never used to dare to speak Swahili next to him.
You were like, I'm not even.
But he made the effort, and I loved it that he'd go into the market and start negotiating in Swahili and laugh.
It even warms their hearts. It warms the heart of someone who does make you so joyful.
Absolutely. And I loved that. I loved that he made the effort when he was living in Tanzania to learn the language, and he spoke it with such pride.
I love that.
You know? And you don't have to speak it perfectly, but it's just great if you can. You know?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Guys, I know we've kind of run out of time.
But
this was a great convo. This was a great conversation.
Incredible. So people, until next time, it's a wrap.
Just do you, be you. It's a wrap.
It's a wrap, and we're done.
Please subscribe,
Like, share.